Hi, my name's Jonathan. I'm an educator here at the River Museum, and we are feeding our paddlefish and sturgeon tank. We are going to take a look at some of these amazing gill rakers today. These are fish that can actually eat microscopic things. They're designed to be able to go through the water and get that food where they're not using teeth the same way that we think about a lot of fish using. They're also cartilaginous fish, so just like a shark, they don't have bones in the same way that maybe a catfish does. They've got kind of some hard tissues that help form their body. Mark's going to feed our fish, and he'll tell us a little bit more about them at the same time.
Well, hi, I'm Mark. I'm an assistant curator here at the National River Museum, and today we've got a couple of food items for these fish in this tank. So we've got some rotifers, which is what's turning this container kind of orangey red. They're basically a microscopic or nearly microscopic little crustacean. And then we've also got some mysis shrimp, some freshwater mysis shrimp that are about a ½ an inch to an inch long. So now we're going to go ahead and feed these animals. A lot of the bigger food pieces, the mysis shrimp, they're going to sink to the bottom, and all your bottom feeding fish, your sturgeon, etc., they're going to feed on that. All of the rotifers that are in here are going to stay kind of mixed into the water column, and that's what the paddlefish are going to feed on.
So you can immediately see some of the feeding frenzy, but like Mark mentioned, there's very much some fish that are feeding kind of in the middle of the water column, our paddlefish, and then fish like our shovel-nosed sturgeon that are really at the bottom of the water. Our paddlefish will be able to open their mouths really, really wide, to be able to bring that food up into their bodies.
And then, of course, one of the most interesting parts of the paddlefish anatomy is, of course, their paddle, where they get their name from. And it's a very important tool when it comes to feeding and predator avoidance. Their paddles are covered with these little sacs, these little electrical sensing sacs that are called AMPULLAE of Lorenzini. It's also very fun to say. That tells them where all living things are around them in relation to themselves. So they can tell when there's a larger predatory fish or just a larger animal nearby, or they can tell when there's small food that's anywhere around their mouth and direct themselves towards it to eat it. The paddle is what looks like the nose. They do have nostrils, nares, that are just in front of their eyes, but the paddle itself is covered with these basically electrical sensors that can find food even in completely stained water. The sturgeon, they've got these great mustaches, otherwise known in the fish world as barbels, and then closely looking at some of these barbels, they actually are compound. They have additional little fibers that hang off of them, and they're positioned right in front of their mouth. So they cruise along the bottom, sensing any kind of food even under the substrate on the river or lake bottom. And as they come across it, then they suck their mouth down, grab everything up, and then swallow the food and spit out all the inedible parts.
You can see our lake sturgeon. They'll actually get much larger, but they're the ones with the spots on them. And then the shovel-nosed sturgeon, they stay smaller as adults. They're the ones that are darker in our tank right now. And sturgeon and paddlefish are long-lived species. We know of paddlefish that have lived as long as 55 years. So if you can imagine a fish like that living kind of a human lifespan, that's something that's really unique about how they're designed and what they do in their environment. And part of what makes these paddlefish and sturgeon so unique is that they have been unchanged on Earth for such a long time, something like 65 million years. They've had their same anatomy and adaptations to survive the way they do. They're really a dinosaur living in our modern age. I want to thank you for joining us here today at the aquarium as we feed our paddlefish and sturgeon and some of the other creatures that live in this tank. These are amazing animals with fantastic adaptations that allow them to survive in the wild that we can observe here at the aquarium.